Today we're doing some fab stuff, making a downpipe for this thing. Finally, after the one broke on race week. Making downpipe today.
Do not go over here.
Don't go over there?
Do not look at what we're doing.
Well then, don't look at what I'm doing either, okay? You know what? We're just, don't look at it. It's none of your business.
I can't help it. Big Brother's big and blue.
You know, you can't help me, so just don't even look at what I'm doing. You're not allowed. If I can't look at what you're doing, you can't look at what I'm doing. We have mutual understanding. Guess what? Suck it.
You never think you'd see.
What's the...
Dude, he even hit his hat. Probably like one of those kids with little spinny things on there.
Yeah. Well, we gotta get him a freaking propeller hat. Now we're getting some good ideas. You guys want to know how a lift actually works? I got the inner fender pulled out here. This is what we're dealing with. I use these V-bands. These particular ones are from Race Part Solutions because they got a thick shoulder on them, which is nice. And they use the same program, so you can get an aluminum one and a stainless one and then use each half of either. So this part's stainless because it makes the hard 180, and then the rest of it is aluminum. And this is how they come. They come with this O-ring in here, and you basically just take that out and you can use it for exhaust just fine. So that is what we're gonna build off of from there. So I went to the gym, got a table. Now it's after 5, everybody's gone, which is when I'm really the most productive, is when I'm by myself. But now we can finally get going in here. I got the box of tube over here from Woolf Aircraft. And this stuff is super thick stuff. Really thick stuff. Still lighter than steel. And no, before you're like, oh, just use titanium. Well, Woolf doesn't make titanium, so I'm not gonna spend the money on titanium. I find aluminum easy to work with, just because with the chop saw method, there's no cleanup really. You just take the deburr tool and just, and that's it. It's quick, it's easy, doesn't make a huge mess. I mean, it makes chips, but the chips are big. They're easy to vacuum and brew them up. I don't know. I would just prefer working with aluminum over steel. I don't know why, it's kind of weird, but that's just me. So I'm gonna get to taking a piece of pipe here. Have that come out somewhere around there. You can't deliberate too much over the first cut. The first cut is just something that you gotta do to get out of the way, because you're never gonna know what you're doing until you cut something and start holding it up there and just start doing it. So I'm gonna give it a cut and get it to come out this way, and I'll have to cut it again, get another one, comes back in here. So let's get to it. I'm gonna cut this one just slightly past the radius of being midway. I'll tell you why. If I cut it right down the middle, then I have two of the same thing. It doesn't do me much good. If I do it a little bit this way, then I got one that's kind of shallow and one that's more extreme. And then when I go to mock it up, kind of feel out what I'm trying to do, then I have different stuff to try, and I only cut one piece of pipe. Pro tip. Look how prime that is. Dang. And this is just a regular old wood blade. Regular wood blade. If you haven't figured that out already, that's a huge, huge thing, and something that I learned from Jeff Jr. When he showed me that, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Regular old wood blade just does freaking work on aluminum. Just works so well. And that's because aluminum is not ferrous. I don't know exactly what ferrous means, other than that it doesn't make sparks whenever you do stuff to it. So it has to throw the chips, otherwise it just dulls the blade. So you need big scooping blades to throw the excess and like scoop it away. Whereas steel, you want the finer blades to get the tiny pieces. This works great. Any kind of wood blade is gonna be what you want to use to cut aluminum stuff. So you can see how the mandrel comes through here. On the outer part, that is still thicker than the straight piece of the old tube. On the inside, it's thick with 2Cs because the mandrel squishes it out. Like on the old tube that broke, the apex of a bend was so thin that I could take it and like bend it with my fingers. So I knew it was only a matter of time before it broke, but it's all I had. So now that I got this big stuff, we're gonna be all set. have come to accept that I'm gonna need to go to the store and get brake clean because there's none in here. So I just want to see where this lands before I go do that. I may use the tighter bend to get it out a little more this way, because on the old one the bend came just behind this. Like I could just get a wrench in there and it was cranked up the whole way. So kind of, I'll probably end up cutting it about here and then wrapping it back in that way. This is all it really is. Cutting, holding things up, thinking, hey, well, shuffle it around, make it happen. But yeah, now we're gonna go to the store and get some brake clean. Fire up old Elvis here. Yep, I like this truck. I got brake clean, non-chlorinated, as it should be. Because when these are kind of oily, they come out of the mandrel and they still got oil in them. So I gotta clean all that off. I clean them after I cut them. I like to clean them before I cut them. Then I don't have to do individual pieces, and then it's all good, ready to go. Tape sticks better do it when I go to mock it up. So I gotta clean these up, and then we'll start, you know, just bleh. I'm not good at explaining this while I do it. If I'm being completely honest, I don't want to freaking film this. I don't. It screws up my flow state, and this is like an art for me with this tube stuff. Like I put a lot of focus into it, so trying to film it and explain what I'm doing is just, I don't want to, but I am, because I feel like it's important. So I'm just doing it. Bear with me here. Look how awesome this is. I mean, this piece is really just burr in there. Just this thing right here, just mint. Nothing. And then you can kind of run around the outside a little bit too, like a potato peeler. Get that off, and then it's great. And you're not gonna like slice your finger. This thing's really not that sharp. So I ended up needing to cut another one that was a more extreme bend, which isn't really a big deal, because now I got this one ready to go for right there. Actually, I may want a little bit more out of this one too. So we'll see here. Yeah, I want more. I'm a little weird sometimes, and I don't really like where this is going. It just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, it's fine, but it just doesn't really get me feeling right. So I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna leave it right there, and I'm going to start over with a new piece and work at it from there and see how that one comes out. And probably I'll hit my stride quicker, and I will take that one apart, and the pieces of that one will end up making up the new one after I get those first couple pieces. It's so weird. My brain is spaghetti, but sometimes getting a clean slate helps like that. And that's why all these pieces are taped together, because you're not committed to anything. It's just like Legos, except making your own Lego. If I don't use them on this side completely, then they'll end up on the other side, or they'll end up somewhere else in the exhaust. Those, you know, just kind of works itself out. Kind of getting somewhere here now. What I'll do to kind of help hold things or keep stuff off of something it shouldn't be touching is I'll put some cardboard in there. Like whenever I did the headers on Shane McElrary's Vega, I wrapped a bunch of cardboard around the one frame rail and just laid the collector right on it. And that's how I mounted it. So when I finish everything, pull that off, then the perfect amount of gap is there. That's kind of what I'm doing here too. That was actually a video I did way back. That was my first big video, the one that kind of like got me monetized. So you should go check that one out after this. Getting that through here, going like that, finding my pace. I like this a lot better. And then it's gonna turn in just a little bit more, turn down, and then pff, money. That's why I do it the way I do it. Getting somewhere. This is coming around. And sometimes it almost feels like you're cutting a bend that's not even really a bend. Like, let me show you the other side of this that I cut. It almost looks like I cut it at a 90, but I didn't. But what's hard to process sometimes is that even if you cut a slight bend, when you know you got 8 inches of pipe coming off of it, that ends up being a pretty drastic angle. So sometimes less is more when you're making bends and you can't quite seem to make it work right. Also, I am using safety glasses. These actually came from a guy that I met at PFI. He had some car there, and he was like, yo, I'll send you some of these. I'm like, all right. So I use my safety glasses in here. That's his thingy. He's got like a desert race Honda or something, I don't know. Out of my wheelhouse, but they work. Yeah, so that's the other side that came off of there. I'm trying to minimize bends, like tight bends on here, because the last one split at a weld that was basically at the apex here. So if I keep that better, it's welded on the thicker parts, then a straighter shot, less, you know, heat in the corners, it's just better. Less restriction, all that stuff. So we're coming down here. Yeah, I'm gonna take another piece, get it to bound down that way. It'll end up, if I continue the plane, throw it down here somewhere, knock it off, kick it this way, and now I can start farming out of the pieces I already have, because this one may do the job. Well, how about that? I'm gonna run with that right there. So basically gonna go like that. I need some more hands for this, so I'm gonna get to that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get in there and do it. This pipe is kind of heavy, so it doesn't want to hang off that flange real well. Where sometimes it'll kind of be a nice tight fit and it'll stay in there. Or you can tack it. I don't recommend that, because when it's not tacked, you get the pipe made. If you need to move it a little bit, there's a little bit of room inside the flange where it lips over, where you can kind of, you know, just dial it in just a hair. But I got this in here, got it marked with my little lines. Pull it out, line the lines up. That's what I've been doing this whole time. I showed you how to do that already. So pull that out, line the lines up, tape it, and then put it back in there. I like to use the clicky Sharpies, so I don't have to deal with the caps all the time, but I don't have one of those right now. And I really like this tape, this yellow 3M body shop tape. It's like very waxy, has good holding power, and I don't know why. I've used all kinds of different kinds, like masking tape on here. This is my favorite. I typically use the thicker stuff on pipe that's this big, because it holds better, but I don't have any of it right now. This is just what I got left, so. We got something going on here. Basically, it's like pretty much done. Like all the hard work is out of the way, since it comes down under here. And yeah, I have an oil leak. It's been kind of seepy for a while. It's just that this is literally probably 2,000 miles of me not cleaning it, where typically I'm under here pretty regularly, so I wipe it all off, but I just stopped caring. This is where the old bracket was that broke, and it was actually so bent before that I chopped it and re-welded it just to patch it by for something else. Well, then it broke, and then it fell. That's why it broke, because there was nothing supporting it back here. Add a piece to this, but since I'm far enough down now, I'm gonna pull this off and tack weld all of it, because I'm happy with this. This is good. I can start again from a new spot here. I don't have to keep all this temporary. I can solidify that, make this my new point A, and go from there. The other side of the exhaust, when I turn the boost up, the thrust is so intense that it bent this pipe almost in half. Look at that. I love when I find stuff like that, because that means there's power on the table, because that's a freaking restriction if I ever saw one. And it's just from this pipe getting pushed up by the sheer force of air that comes out of it. So not only is it getting blocked there, it was blowing right into the cross member. So that's awesome. I went 152 miles an hour with this blockage right here. Like, heck yeah. And that's a hodgepodge patch job too. This whole exhaust is just patched up city. I used to have it go, it used to run all the way back to where the control arms are, and it kicked out there. But I busted my pinion yoke enough times where the drive shaft dinged it so much that I couldn't undent it, and I just had to cut it off. So when I cut it off, I just whipped up these little turn downs out of pieces laying around, just so it wouldn't blow like on that stuff. And that's just how it stayed, because it was fine. Well then, you know, it's fine, just leave it there. Then all of a sudden it's not fine, then it's causing problems, then it's bent in half, and your downpipe falls off, and it's just a big old freaking disaster, and you got to redo the whole thing the right way anyway. So I should have done this a long time ago. Actually, funny story, I've had this tube to do this since February, and I just never did it. So yeah, I kind of suck, but better I'm doing it now that I got YouTube rolling and you guys can learn something from it than doing it before and it being done and finding the right way. I don't know how much tube I have. I'm supposed to have some more coming, but I really want to get the exhaust out back farther, and I really want to try an X pipe. I want to hear what an X pipe sounds like on this thing. Like get it to, it'll come around the transfer case, the X will be kind of right under the yoke, and then I want to split with just the longest straight section of pipe I can get to go from the pipe straight, no bends at all, and just kind of point at the back tires, basically. We'll pull a page out of like the NASCAR Super Speedway book here. Those cars sounded freaking awesome because of the X pipe and the way that the sound kind of resonates with a really long piece of tube that has no bend obstruction to screw with the sound waves. I want to try that on here just to see if this thing will wail like a freaking Banshee at 8,000 RPM, because it already sounds really cool the way it is, but man, with that long pipe on there and that really projecting, it'd be crazy. Plus, having the exhaust by the back tire makes for some freaking epic burnouts. I got a clip of how it used to be when I did some nasty burnouts to this thing, which I will show right here. That smoke all comes out like really far and just projects like that is 100% due to the fact that the exhaust force is blowing it there. Little trick of the trade, if you're building your exhaust and you want to do burnouts that'll make your friends go, holy crap, that was epic. Use the exhaust to your advantage. Firing up the old Fronius magic wave. Get this thing tacked together. Because if I left it hang like that too long, the tape would separate and I would lose everything. Because this is the part that I wanted to do on a lift primarily. I gotta be off the lift tonight because this is a functioning shop and they do business here. So that being said, if you're in DFW, anywhere around Dallas, Fort Worth, whatever, 777 Performance, bring your car here. The main part I wanted to do on a lift just because I'm tall and it's easier to film things for you guys. Because what I'll do to tack stuff, because I'm by myself all the time, I'll just cut a little slice out, tack it, do the same on the other side. That way it doesn't pull apart, because when you tack something, if you tack it, it's going to pull apart on the other side just because of the byproduct of cooling. So that's kind of my little hack around that. At the end of this, tungsten is all goobered up, so I just break it off with some pliers, because this thing does a really cool feature. It has a cap shaping feature, so you can go on here. Yeah, there we go. We'll turn that on and it says cap will be formed during next welding start. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's nice and round now. Pretty freaking cool. Fronius is on another level with this stuff. I was really on the struggle bus here for a minute. A couple of reasons. One, the thin tape I have does not hold very well when it gets hot. The adhesive loses its strength and it pulls apart still. So it doesn't have as much holding power as the thick stuff, which was kind of hurting me. And two, this welder has so many more features than I've ever been used to that I forget what it needs to be sometimes. Like, it was just not, it wasn't really doing it right. And I just was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I know how to weld. So it was something in the settings, it was the frequency. I've never been able to change the frequency in a welder before. My old one just did what it did. And this one was set at like 60 hertz, which is pretty low. After some 2 seconds of Googling, I found out that the typical range is like 120 to 200 on like the, you know, some welding website, whatever. So I just put it at 120 and boom, it was fine. So here's the 60, and it's already kind of like stress cracking. It just looks like garbage. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And the 120 is still not great, but it actually went together a lot better. I'm still figuring this thing out. These pipes really aren't that clean. And I didn't clean my rod off either, where back when I built the Escalade in Pennsylvania, like I was Mr. Sterile everything. I cleaned the crap out of everything. This is a really important point I want to make here. I am not very good at this. You might think, oh, well, the Escalade looks really good, US really good, and yeah, it does look really good, but I'm not very good at this. I just try really, really hard. I give it my best effort. Well, not right now, but when I built that was my best. That was my very, very best effort, and that's why it came out the way it did. I didn't just haphazardly throw it together and it happened to look like that. It's just, I did my best on it, and that's why it looks that way. In order for me to do my best, it requires a lot of focus, a lot of preparation, and a lot of attention, which I'm not doing right now because I'm filming this stuff and I'm not in my element. I'm not familiar here. I've never made anything here before like this, so I'm figuring it out. Where back there, I had my whole setup. I made my favorite table, like made it the right height. I knew where my stuff was. It was like my zone, and that's where I learned, and I'm still learning. In order for me to perform at a high level, I have to try really, really hard to keep pace with somebody who does it naturally. But most people who do that naturally, that's that good, have been doing it for 20 years. I just started. So for me to keep pace with the top level stuff, I gotta try that much more. Yeah, now this is all tacked up, I'm good. I'm gonna get back to get this thing put back together, clean up my mess, get off the lift so I'm not in anybody's way. I hope you learned something. Just hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I know there's a lot of you out there who, for whatever reason, watch my stuff and don't hit the subscribe button. I don't know why. I find myself forgetting that sometimes too with other channels that I watch. As I see their stuff in my feed all the time, I watch it and I'm like, oh, I'm not even subscribed to this guy. Well, let me fix that. So fix that if you haven't fixed it already. If you don't like my channel and you still watch my stuff, then don't subscribe. I didn't earn it. I want it if I earned it. Just saying. You should go check out the video I did with Shane McAlery's headers. It's kind of cruddy. I filmed it on my phone, but it's a real good representation of all this. A little bit better than what I just did today. So we'll see you over there.